waters wondrous deep. And my love is wondrous bonny. And it grieved me so to think she'd wet her feet. I should tell you to turn this up if it needs turning up or down. Yeah. Because I love her best of any. Go saddle for me my bonny grey mare. Go saddle her soon and make her ready. Cross that water tonight. And all to see mine bonny lady. And woe betide you and in water. At night you are a gloomy river, and over you I'll build a bridge, that nevermore may true love sever. Of a moss and moor and a many a mile, and his spurs of steel were sore to bite, and from the mare's feet flew the fire. Come, put up your boat. Put up your boat for gold and silver, for I must cross that river tonight. And all to see my bonny lady. Well, the sides are steep, the water's deep. From bank to brae the water's pouring. Shouldn't have picked such a long song, should I? And your bonny grey mare, she sweats to hear. She stands to hear those waters toiling. And woe betide you, and in water. At night you are a gloomy river, and over you I'll build a bridge, that nevermore may true love sever. And he hath tried to swim that stretch, and he swam on, both strong and steady. was wide and strength did fail. And he never saw his bonny lady. And woe betide the willow one, and woe betide the bush of briar. For it broke beneath her true love's hand. When strength did fail and the limbs did tire, and woe betide you, and water. At night you are a gloomy river, and over you I'll build a bridge. That nevermore made true. Love sever. Thank you. Sorry I picked such a long song. You might regret sitting next to that amp in a bit. I mean in the talk. I'll just have a sip of gin. How's everyone doing? Hello, hello. Tom, do you want to see if, when you're reading, Nick would like to play some acoustic guitar and I could play some flute? If you fancy it. Yeah, I have a little conflab with him. So my name's Ben Tallamy. That was a song arranged by Nick Jones. And this is one that I wrote. Well, when I was a young boy, my mother, she told me, well, hum-diddle-little-lie, well, hum-diddle-little-lie, that if I was not rich enough, well, I would become broken. Well, hum-diddle-little-lie, well, hum-diddle-little-lie. So I got myself a job, well, I got myself a life. Well, hum-diddle-little-lie, well, hum-diddle-little-lie. But the devil, he was wiser. I'd played into his game. Well, hum-diddle-little-lie, well, hum-diddle-little-lie. Well, here I am with a demon on my back. Well, I'm a-crawling down that blackened track. I got my feet on the pedals and I'm clawing at the dash. Well, I'm gonna pay it all for a fistful of cash. Hard times are bound, 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 bound. And it's a long way down, down. Hard times are bound, bound. And it's a long way down. got a letter here, and it's telling you to work. He's gonna take you home. You pay your shirt. It ain't God's way. It's gonna bring me down. I'm gonna paint this town. It ain't God's way. It's gonna bring me down. I'm gonna paint this town. Thought I broke something then. How are we doing for time? 10 minutes. I'll do another one or two. Nick, did you bring your own guitar? That's typical. So this is a track off my second album. When you are done, these both bones must rest. Our motions here are like the setting sun. Our thoughts like souls have dress. We all arrive before the plow, seasons sown in jest. Rich or poor, all equal now, loved and loathed and but I will not just close my eyes. I will scream your name at night. Against the darkness, oh, I shall rage. Like a mountain fire that toils for days. Like a dog in search of praise. Like an act of God. Like a declaration of love. I am a flesh flood. All earthly control. Do not misinterpret my intent. My nature does not wish you ill. These are merely echoes of the words we've spent, our elaborations of our will. Like a holy scripture, like a transcendental fixture, like a picture of me and you. Illuminate those anxious sighs, my love. Elaborate upon the universal language of the heart, a part we play so well. Caesars fell, where lovers lost themselves before. 5 minutes, probably? Cool. So here's one I didn't write that Ellie might like. You probably don't. I know Tom will. The book of love is long and boring. No one can pick the damn thing up. It's full of charts and facts and figures and rules for dancing. But I love it when you read to me and you could read me anything. The book of love has music in it. In fact, that's where music comes from. Some of it's just transcendental. Some of it's just really dumb. But I love it when you sing to me and you could sing me anything. The book of love is long and boring and written really long ago. It's full of hearts and heart-shaped boxes and things we're much too young to know. But I love it when you give me things and you ought to give me wedding rings. You ought to give me wedding rings. What is that? Like, shall I stop? Thank you. Yeah, cool.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. What a great intro to your session. Very mellow. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming here to talk about your new book. Congratulations on your new book. I'm not going to do any more intros because everyone knows who you are. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Ben.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we need to come up as we can turn up a bit? Cool. So, Tom is here with his 14th book, 1983, I believe,
Yeah.
and it's the second of 3 novels.
That's right.
One of which is coming out next year, which is called?
And that's called Everything Will Swallow You. And it's already been written. I'm editing it at the moment. So I wrote 2 novels in just over a year, which I'm never doing again. It's a bit too intense in a way.
Yeah. So 1983, it's only been out a week, hasn't it? Is that right?
I think, what's the date?
It's
It
the
came
22nd.
out,
Or it would
2
have
weeks
been,
then.
It would have been a week when this was going to happen.
Yeah, this was originally going to happen 2 weeks ago today. Yes.
Yeah. I've just realised we were going to hold these to look less intimidating.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I was very lucky to be able to read the book sort of ahead of time, and it's. So I don't want to give anything away. You'd written in the front of mine that this book contains the nearly north, robots, aliens, and alpacas, which, trade description, I was not disappointed. It contained all of those things.
That's good.
But it's not autobiographical, but it is-ish.
It definitely is-ish. I mean, in some ways, there's one section of it that's my most autobiographical fiction yet. I very intentionally used this quote from Penelope Lively's Moon Tiger in the front as the epigraph. As Annie Proulx says, no one reads epigraphs, but we put them in anyway. A lot of people just kind of skip over them. But I do think this is quite significant to sort of the flavour of the novel. And what Penelope Lively said in Moon Tiger was, we do not remember childhood, we imagine it. We search for it in vain through layers of obscuring dust and recover some bedraggled shreds of what we think it was. And the book sort of goes on that idea. So one of the narrators, there's so many narrators in this book, but the main one is called Benji, and he is a version of me in 1983. He turns 8 in the middle of 1983 in the same way I did. And he's interested in broadly the same things. But I think if I'd written this as a memoir, there would have perhaps been a question over, how much is real? How much is it the snobbery of my own memory, trying to kind of take things together, trying to remember the best parts? And once I'd sort of realised that, I suppose I thought, well, I can make stuff up as well. There's some stuff that's very, very accurate to my own childhood, and then there's some stuff that's totally made up.
Well, I think the quote's really interesting because I found it was like a key to unlock, like it changed how I approached the book, and the pictures are really interesting. So it's not giving anything away. The pictures start.
No, definitely
So there's a lot of photographs in it which I believe are from your actual life.
They are. There was a lady interviewed me at my favourite bookshop in the Midlands, Scarthin Books, at the weekend, and she said she was really enchanted by the black and white photographs, and she was really hoping they were of people I knew and stuff, because she was worried that I'd just found them in a junk shop or something like that and just shoved these people in. But they're actually from our family's photo albums from the early 80s, which I spent a lot of time poring over while I was writing this book. And every time I'd look at a photo, it'd send me down a rabbit hole, and I'd remember all these things that I'd forgotten. And this lady then described the book as like a literary version of a faded family photo album in some ways, which I think it is, as well as other things.
Well, it's quite, a lot of your work's quite dreamlike in places, and I think it's interesting because the child's imagination, obviously we go through this character that's the imagination of this boy, and I think that gave it to me, like this sense that the story exists in two places. It could be in the child's imagination, or it could be factual, or it could be part of your life.
Exactly.
And it was quite postmodern in that sense, I found, because I obviously have heard some of these stories.
Yes, yeah.
And it added an extra layer to it.
Yeah, I think I wanted that, and I wanted. So one difficulty about that was the fact that it's not a 7 or 8 year old narrating events as they happen. It's more like it's someone who's presumably 48, 49, like me, and sort of then slipping back very easily into their childlike imagination, which I kind of find it weirdly easy to do with that year, with 1983. It feels like quite a pivotal year, and I think it was quite a happy year for me as well.
It's interesting because I can't remember a lot of my childhood very well, which is very strange. But the bits I can remember more clearly have photographs attached to them.
Yeah.
And then obviously the sense is, have I just constructed and projected?
Is it a memory of a photograph, or is it a real memory? There's always that question. You see, I'm convinced that I can remember my cousin Faye getting her head stuck in the railings outside our house when I was 6 months old, and surely that's false, but there's no photo of that either, so maybe it's just a story that someone told me so many times that it sort of became real. But that's just one aspect of the book. I think I could have done that. I could have made the whole book that, but that wouldn't have been very interesting for me. I wanted to make it more than that and a bit weirder than that as well.
Well, I think it's so Villager's obviously been out a year. Is it a year?
2 years
2
now.
years,
Yeah.
2 years. So Villager being you've often said about slipping into novels, like Help the Witch was sort of a gateway into novels.
It was a toe dipped in the water of fiction, because I really wanted to write a novel, but I was kind of like, maybe I'm not ready yet, I'll just write some short stories. But I wanted to write Villager when I was writing Help the Witch, but I thought, let's give it a couple more years, and I am glad I did.
Because Villagers felt to me much denser and much more complex.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting with 1983 is that it feels like it feels more relaxed because it's more confident.
Yeah.
And it's not trying, it doesn't feel like it's trying to find its way or trying to explore. It's like just telling the story, and it feels like it's from memory, even when it obviously isn't.
I suppose what I did, I think the way I view it is Village is like, it's not progressive rock, but it's maybe like one of those psychedelic albums that are like, I don't know, they're like a song suite and they have a theme and they maybe have some 7-minute songs, whereas like 1983 is more like just a good pop song from the past, I suppose.
I thought you were going to use the
both.
analogy of an actual song that no one would have heard of.
No, I'm not going to do that. Although there's always a few of those in those books. Like there's always bands, fictional bands in my book. There's one called Squizzard in here, which is two of the characters. They drive past a squirrel that looks strangely like a wizard, so they decide to name their band Squizzard as a result of that.
Like, do you feel that, because I think going back to the photos as well, the photos are really key to the story, I think.
Yeah, I didn't say. So the photos are like the sum of my mum and dad.
They're not just, they're not just in there.
And there's some of me, but you're as you read it, you're just supposed to think it's this kid Benji, not me.
But I think there's a really good decision you made, was you didn't put any captions on the photos. So we can infer, they're on the page, and we can infer their placement in the chapter as relating to the parts of that chapter. But it is open to interpretation.
I want to do that. I want to give the reader space. It's like I don't want to over-explain anything, and I think that's something that I do with the text. I leave lots of gaps for people's own interpretation, and so I guess I'm doing the same thing with the photos. That would be a really big case of over-explaining for me if I'd had captions on the photos. Yeah.
And I think what I find interesting, I mean, we're a decade apart.
Yeah.
But what
Pretty
was
much
interesting,
exactly.
yeah.
What
was really interesting was how not only did the 80s now feel like another world, but the North, as someone from Devon, the North feels like a very different world as well. And the North in the 80s was like, it felt like you were exploring this quite sort of wild urban environment at times, but also this really wild rural sort of like school seemed quite sort of small and...
Well, the thing with the book is that it's not the North, it's that part of the Midlands that like people down here think is the North. And it's like, but it's
that's me then, yeah.
It's difficult because it's like, it's not quite, I almost don't fully identify as a Midlander, but I'm not allowed in the North either. Like if I'd grown up like 15 miles further north, I would definitely be allowed in, but I'm not quite allowed in. So this place has got a lot of the characteristics of the North. And then there's the particular climate of it in 1983. It's a very different place now, but it's kind of like, it's a very, like, I think when I wrote Villager, like, I was sort of so in love with Dartmoor, and I still am. And it was like a love letter to the Devon landscape, but it's also set on a moor that isn't Dartmoor. It was me inventing something else. So I could have continued in that vein, but I thought, no, I want to write about a different kind of landscape, and this is very different. It's like industrial rural. So where I lived at this point in my life, I was halfway between two mines, one of which had closed down and one of which was about to be closed down because 1984 and the miners' strikes and all that shit was coming. So it's in between those. But to me, it's the only countryside I've really known. So I thought it was fascinating to go out into this, and I'd go up to like the slag heap up the road, and I'd make a den on the slag heap using an old mattress.
The den on the slag heap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a good song title, wouldn't it? So, but, you know, but my mum and dad are kind of like, at the time, they're like, oh, bloody hell, I wish we could live in the Peak District or the south of France. But to me, as a 7 or 8 year old, it's great. And, you know, apart from the kid up the road who like burned my toys and things like that. So and there
apart from that,
there was an element of sort of a strong element of racism and small-mindedness, and I think what I wanted to explore as well, I suddenly realised I lived 2 childhoods at the same time. So I've got, like, on one hand, this place, this mining village, 11 miles north of Nottingham, which is, you know, quite racist, quite small-minded. And then, but I go to primary school in central Nottingham, in this incredibly multicultural school, which is really open-minded and lovely. I mean, it's a tribute to my school as well. So I'm kind of like exploring this sort of tension between those 2 areas in the novel a lot.
And I mean, you said that was quite a isolated part of your schooling that was good. You know, you said afterwards it became
well, I went
a sort of shock to the system.
I went to school, weirdly, I ended up going to school quite near where I was living then, even though we moved around a lot. Sort of almost by accident, I ended up like back in that area going to school, and suddenly realised like that people weren't as nice, you know, and it was just it was very xenophobic. It was very hard. But the weird thing is, at the same time, I sort of think like my primary school was brilliant for me in one way, and my secondary school being awful was also brilliant for me. They're both formative in different ways.
Do you think that like the education, like the way you talk about the teachers that the characters in the book is sort of loving, and it feels like the characters in the book inspire the you know, Benji's imagination and drive him. And do you feel the teachers had a part in your?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I thought it was normal at the time, but it wasn't a normal school. It was not a like officially alternative school or officially hippie
It sounds
school.
like a Steiner school.
Yeah, it was
now,
really not though. That's the whole thing. It was so far away from that, because it was mostly working class kids, central Nottingham, really multicultural. I mean, there's a photo in here of I think the kids in the class above mine, and you'll see how diverse. And there's another one which is of my class, which I left out of the book for complicated reasons, which I can explain in a minute. But that's like on my Substack if anyone wants to look at it. And it just shows like it's 1982 that photo's taken in Nottingham, but it looks like 1979 because they're like, we're all in like hand-me-down clothes, and we've got like homemade haircuts and stuff, and Nottingham hasn't really caught up to London, you know. Yeah. It's like what London maybe was in 1978 or something like that. But the book is it's dedicated to my old teachers, and I realised they were an unusually inspiring selection of people who they just really wanted to. It's child-centered learning. That's what they call it, and it's like pre-national curriculum, and we loved going to school. We were excited about going to school. We didn't want to go home.
That's quite a contrast to my.
I know, we talked about that, didn't we?
It's interesting. Like, do you feel that the characters such as Paul Yashimoto, who who you talked about his hair? No, I believe that's based on a real.
It's a real story. So there's a kid called Paul Hashimoto in the book, and he's based on my friend Julian Kashdan. And I suddenly, again, looking at a photo, going down the rabbit hole that the photo sent me on, I remembered that as a 5-year-old in the first class I was in after I came up from the nursery, I would just sit there in Miss Needham's class twiddling Julian Kashdan's hair, because he had lovely, clean, glossy hair. And that was just like normal and just sort of okay, and he was totally fine with it as well. I suppose it's just quite sweet. I mean,
do you know if he's fine with it if it's in the book now? Like, do you worry about these people?
So I've got to get back to him because he.
Don't tell him about the hair thing.
I just got a message the other day through my website, and it said, "From Julian Kashdan. Hi Tom, it'd be nice to get back in touch." So we'll find out. You know.
He's going to option the rights to it.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the danger when you come close to. Obviously, you have ownership over your own memories. You've changed the names.
Yeah.
But it's like obviously you might want to be able to talk to these people again with you're not unkind to anyone in the book.
Well, that's the thing. It's all a really positive thing, and they will know that a lot of it's really far-fetched. Like, so there's another friend, Edward Ward, who was he was an adopted kid, and he had loads of brothers and sisters, and so he's called Errol Watts in the book, but it's not him. But there's various things, like there's a picture of me and him playing next to our asbestos garage, which my dad kept saying would kill us if we touched it. It did actually put me in hospital eventually, but not with asbestosis, fortunately. I fell through the window of it. But Edward's like, I loved his house, which was in central Nottingham, and you could just, there'd just be like this trunk full of shoes, but they'd just be random shoes, and you just had to grab two, and that was what
to do what?
Just to go out.
Oh, right.
That, like, you just grabbed any two
It was
shoes
just like, help yourself some
that
shoes,
vaguely
guys. It's like-
fit, and that was what you wore for
Yeah.
the day. So that was kind of his life. But then, so that's all accurate. But then the other part that's not accurate is, I thought I was living in Cornwall when I wrote this last summer last year, and I thought I want to write about Cornwall. So I thought, sod it, let's put the headmistress in the book. She now lives in Cornwall, and she's a swimmer like I am. She's interested in swimming a lot, and she's on the beach one day, and she meets this kid, Errol Watts, who now has a sort of jewellery business where he's making like jewellery out of things he's found on the beach, like sea glass and things like that. And he goes over and he goes, "Oh my God, it's Miss Wishbone! Like you're amazing. Like your school was the best thing that ever happened to me." And it was a way of me demonstrating just how strongly these kids feel about this school as they age. And I don't know. I know that a couple of the other kids feel like that. I haven't re-met enough of them to know we all feel like that. And we probably don't, but it's definitely a general feeling about it that stayed with us through adulthood.
Are any of the teachers still alive, or?
Yeah. I mean, what happens, because my mum taught there as well. So that's, I mean, the mum in the book teaches at the school. And that's why I went there, because my mum and dad couldn't really afford childcare. So they were like, they put me in the nursery when I was like 3, and I'd go in with my mum, and she taught, but fortunately she wasn't my teacher, because I would have got loads of shit off the other kids.
I was going to say, it's like...
She was an English as a second language teacher. But they all meet up. They still have a dinner every 2 or 3 months and chat about what everyone's been doing. So it's obviously it's a place that's bonded them in a strong way.
I think it's... well, I mean, before we run out of time, we should talk about the fact that the book is weird. And that's something that might not be apparent from this conversation about your child, apart from the twiddling the hair thing, your childhood.
It's weirder than it would seem from us
it's not
talking
like,
about
it's not villager weird.
It's a different kind of...
It's a different flavour of weird.
One of the reasons we can't talk about how weird it is
it
because
spoils
we
the
give
thing.
away some of the stuff in the second half of the book.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's difficult to talk about, but I think it's worth saying that the things that feature that you wrote in the thing, robots, alpacas, and aliens, they're not just incidental to the story. Is that okay? That's not a spoiler, is it?
No, I think it's fair to say out of the 12 narrators of the book, 5 are non-human. I think we can say that, and there's also 2 third-person chapters, which makes me fascinated by the review on, I can't remember where it was, maybe Amazon or something, where someone had said this is definitely a memoir.
Yeah.
I don't quite get that. But
Well, you're a strange guy, mate. You know,
yeah,
it's like...
I think I'm totally normal.
There is a picture. There is a picture in there of a man with an actual robot,
Yeah. So
which confused me because I thought the robot's not. That's just like some cardboard boxes.
again, and that's another reason we can't talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that, because we give it away. But it has. The book has a real historical figure in it, a significant historical figure who is not that well known, but is sort of semi-famous and has been present at many
And he's
significant
local
moments
to
in...
this end of the country, isn't he?
No,
he's not. Okay.
no, East Anglia. Or
Oh, right.
he moved there, and I actually met him before he died.
Oh, right.
So, and I found him a very inspiring person. So one of the things, I just set myself challenges. I don't know where a book's going to go when I start it, and that's part of the fun for me. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'm loosely writing about my life at 7 years old, and then I sort of go, sod it. Let's just say, instead of the alcoholic doctor who lived next door to us when I was 7, let's put this pagan artist robot maker from London who's trying to live incognito, escaping next door. And let's see what happens. So that was the plan. But he's a real person from history. And I want to sort of get the book to his family, actually.
Yeah.
I can't get it to him because he died about 5 years ago.
Do you, like, I mean, your process, you say you don't know where the book's going, so the book takes you on the journey as well. Do you, when you're redrafting, do you always get to the end? Like, what's your process? Because you work really hard. You know, I know you're like
It's the only way to survive as a writer in 2024, isn't it? Exhaust yourself. That's
we
it.
We had that chat where, you know, I said about the philosopher who suggested that in the modern world, through ambition, we become our own slave and master.
Exactly. Yeah, I've definitely done that.
But do you feel that the way you work, is there anything you think that's unique to how you work, or anything that is a teachable asset, do you think?
Oh, no. I can't teach writing.
I thought we were going to get 5 minutes out of that.
I've tried to teach writing before, but I don't think I'm sort of particularly skilled at that kind of thing. I think you just find your own way, and I've taken years to find my own way of doing things. And, you know, you're never going to sit with another writer and see the way they do it. It's all a very, very private thing. But I do find it fascinating that, so John Irving was a writer that I read a lot when I was growing up. Don't read him so much anymore because I felt he went off the boil a bit, but I used to love his books. And I found out from him that he wrote his final sentence of the book before he started the book. So he'd already decided on the ending. I don't want to do that. That sort of defeats the object for me. I want to sort of feel where it's going. And you get this trust that you're going to do the right thing, that it's going to take you in the right direction. But that trust only comes for me through doing it for decades and through, you know, this being my 14th book. That's the only way. And I don't know how you can really teach that.
And I think also, like, for you, I mean, it must have been really frustrating wanting to write a novel for as long as you've been writing.
Yeah.
And to not, did you not start anything? Or
I was so like constantly upset that I hadn't written fiction, because frustrated fiction writer who I wrote 9 non-fiction books and then wrote Help the Witch, which is short stories, doesn't count. Then 2 more non-fiction before I wrote Villager, which is like number 13. So it's my 13th book. It's a long, long time. And I'd see all the things and it'd be kind of like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to write a novel before you're 30? No way. Then, would it be nice to write a novel before you're 40? No, failed at that as well. I did try. I'd get to like 20,000, 25,000, even 30,000 words. But what would happen, and the way I look back at it now, I would panic because I had the rent to pay. And I'd say, this is just an indulgence. You know, I've got journalism at that point. I was still a journalist. That pays the rent. This is this other thing that's just an indulgence. I wasn't taking it seriously. I was saying, stop faffing around and earn some money. So I'd stop for that reason. But there's another reason that I'd stop, and I did not believe in my characters. I'd be writing it, and my voice was not strong enough. I hadn't failed enough before to get to that point. So, and now I do believe in my characters, and I believe in them so much that I go into this sort of hallucinating thing as I'm writing, where I get really caught up with them, like emotionally. I get upset when bad things are happening to them.
Even though you're doing them.
Even though I'm doing them. But I don't feel like I'm doing them, because I'm thinking like, I'm just telling people what happened, because I know what happened, because I get to this point, maybe like 2 or 3 chapters in, when I just start getting pulled along, and I just know the decisions to make. And it's a bit of a cliche to say that. It's kind of like how Keith Richards said he heard satisfaction in a dream and just woke up, and it's there. He didn't write it. It's in the air already. And it feels like a bullshit cliche, but it does feel like that when you're writing it, and it's actually really, it's one of the things I live for as a writer, because I love that process.
Yeah, and I think it's really it's always dangerous. You don't want to change that. You don't want it to become something that you don't get excited by anymore.
No.
And if you had to, make treatments or plan or to keep notes, it might drive you.
And it'd go back to the earlier books that I was writing, which were more kind of like, they weren't to order because I came up with the idea, but they were to order. They were more like I was fulfilling what I thought a publisher wanted as a non-fiction book. I was being creative within it, but I didn't have that freedom, and I wasn't able to go off as deep into my own mind and my own imagination. And for me, that imaginative process, it has a lot of similarities to our imaginative process as kids at this school playing Dungeons and Dragons and saying, this is what happened next.
Well, I think a lot of creative process, it's a very human process. Creativity is a very human process, and everything is designed to tell you that you shouldn't be doing these things because they're dangerous, or they're not responsible, or they're not cost effective, or whatever.
As soon as you bring money into it, everything goes wrong. All that side of it goes wrong. So if you're thinking about like, how much money are you going to earn from the book? What are the sales departments going to think about this? Then you're absolutely snookered. Just don't do that. That's the thing that I try to avoid.
Do you feel that like it's the length of time you've been doing this has enabled you to take these more risky options, or do you think it's changes in the way that books now feel like there's a lot of independent bookshops, there's a lot more of an indie circuit of like publishing?
Yeah.
And do you feel that's enabled you to do it, or just your established time?
No, it's so much a combination of things. I think you definitely get confidence by the fact that you realise people are supporting you to do something different. And I got my confidence in 2015 when I said, I am never writing another piece of journalism for a national newspaper, despite the fact that that's how I'd earned my bread and butter. That's what I'd been told was prestigious. I went, no way, no more. I'm putting things on my website, and there's going to be a little thing in the corner that says you can support my writing if you want to, and a PayPal link. And that felt like it felt a bit American to me. It felt like, God, I'm asking for money. We don't do that as British people. But I did it, and it worked. It sustained me just enough so I didn't have to get another job. That and combination of my book royalties, I just about got by. And that gave me the confidence to think, I can do something weird, I can do something different. And then straight after that, I started publishing with Unbound, and I crowdfunded my first book with them, which was my 7th book overall, and to realise that could be crowdfunded, and to do that was 21st Century Yokel, and I did it in a completely different way, whereas I had the other option at the time, which is to rewrite it in a more obedient way, a way that fitted in with mainstream publishers' desires, but that wouldn't have been as good a book. So I didn't do it. It would have earned me an advance, which I didn't get for this book, and everything. So you get the confidence from that. It builds up, and you get it from experience, and you realise you've changed. You've changed from this person who was, when you were 28, 29, you're in the publishing industry, you're being published, but you realise that you're still this person from a working class background who's kind of intimidated by these people in London with really good educations who are telling you what to do. And you think, thank you very much for letting me publish a book. But I don't feel like that anymore.
And it's interesting because I probably met you when you were just stepping out of that world.
Making that change, the exact point,
You were in various states of different stress along that journey, but you committed yourself to it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Unbound, the model of Unbound really has been something that's just been the backbone of...
They're great. I mean, there's loads of difficulties with publishing that way, but they're great. They've allowed me to write the books that I really, really want to write, and that are totally 100% me, and then they put a cover on them that isn't... It's not trying to mislead anyone to try and sell more copies. It's trying to be like totally fitting to what the book is, whereas I've had that before, where a publisher will actually put a completely ill-fitting cover on your book just to try to get it into Asda or Tesco, but actually you're then alienating a lot of the people who might really enjoy it.
And everything will swallow you.
Yeah.
Your next work, like, are you able to talk anything about that?
Oh, absolutely.
I know you've.
Yeah.
So, how would you described Villager as a psychedelic? Would you say acid jazz?
No, it's not acid
Not
jazz.
acid jazz.
It's just one of those sort of slightly conceptual
And you said
psychedelic
1983
albums.
was pop, sort of not Phil
Pop
Collins.
psych.
though.
No,
Yeah,
it's
not-
pop psych.
not-
It's like I suppose I think of it that point where like a lot of kind of chart songs also had something quite weird going on in them. But that's all just me sort of defining it through the prism of my musical taste, which tends to centre around 1968. Everything Will Swallow You maybe isn't anything like that at all. It's something completely different, and it is more Villager because it's more sprawling, it's long, and it's also another love letter to the West Country, without a doubt, particularly
Dorset, is that right?
West Dorset and Cornwall with a bit of Devon, I would say.
And are you able to give a little tag of what the story's about? I don't know. I just feel like people
I
want to
try,
know.
but it'd be misleading if I try and soundbite it.
So
but
it's about a man who lives with a creature that's come from the sea.
yeah, a creature that walked out of the sea and he decided to look after, and which is a hyper-intelligent creature with a mysterious past.
That looks like a rabbit.
Looks like a dog.
Dog.
Looks like a bit like a borzoi. People think it is, and he's and it's kind of like a kind of buddy movie in a way, but the weirdest kind of buddy movie you could possibly imagine. But it's also all about the second-hand record trade and the antique trade, and it's about class. And it's also, again, the landscape feels like it's a character. Everything Will Swallow You pops into my head as a title. So I always feel like with titles, when you're really trying to look for one, you're really not going to find it. When you're really trying to force it, it kind of gets handed to you by these silent, invisible hands, just when you like let it percolate in the back of your mind. So I was doing that. I didn't have a title, and I'd written most of it. And I'm just walking near the Golden Cap, and I'm seeing where all the cliff falls happened. And just looking at, imagining like, you know, the cliff falling on me as I'm walking, and just the way the land kept folding over, particularly on the undercliff as well, and sort of swallowing itself. And I just thought everything will swallow you, because it will as well, let's face it, generally in life.
That's a lovely...
in modern life.
In modern life. So it's a metaphorical...
Because it's about
swallowing.
modern life being super overwhelming as well.
So it is contemporary then?
Yeah, it's really about... there's a lot about it, which is like about the significant differences between 21st century life and 20th century life. It's about contrasting those as well.
Well, I think that's also present in 1983, and I think it's been very present in your life because of your social media presence that you've slowly annihilated.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, completely, all of it gone.
And that's been a long process, hasn't it?
Because it's that sort of terrified thing. I mean, it's not just because I'm from the background I am from. I think loads of writers feel like that. I can't get rid of it because it's what I rely on to sort of keep me going when I've built a following on there, and that's what stopped me from getting rid of it. And there's loads of, let's face it, loads of great sides about it for all the awful sides. But now it's so much more algorithm based, and it's so much more based on advertising. It's worse, it's harder for writers, it's kind of blocking the progress of writers and destroying the following that writers have built up for years and years, which is why Substack's just such a great thing.
I didn't know if you were going to plug your Substack. Is like...
Well, so I just do Substack now, and that's, you know, that is the future for writing, for writers, and it's got no advertising on.
I think Substack's also interesting because it's for the people that like your earlier work, that they maybe feel that your novels aren't doing. Your Substack is doing that, and it's not Twitter, so it allows people to read without adverts, read like quite a lot. You know, they can read pages of text without having some YouTube video forced in their face. So it's actually allowing you to do the thing that some people might feel you're not doing, but you're doing it a lot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's a good way of doing both, and And I sort of, I do believe in books more than anything. I believe books are what will last, but I also see that Substack's a really good way of communicating with people, and there's some brilliant writing on there generally. There's a lot of great writers and a lot of people feeling this amazing freedom that comes with being sort of separated from what you have with the newspaper, which is you have to react to what's going on now, or you have to tie something in with the corporate deadline of whatever it is, like a new perfume or a new record or just a trend that a newspaper's invented, and all the writing is based around that, rather than based around what a writer just gets up and goes, I want to write about this more than ever. So then the writing's going to be better because it's not linked to that. This is a slightly separate subject, but I used to think the ideal job would be to be a newspaper columnist, to have a column every month. And I did have sort columns for a newspaper for a while, but just to have that thing where you've got that designated space that's yours and you can have freedom. But it's not freedom because newspaper columnists have to maybe manufacture an opinion on something they don't have an opinion on. And Substack's the opposite to that.
I think it's interesting, and it's interesting that a lot of American writers, or like a lot of American songs, they'll feature very heavily, talking about the roads between towns, and it's like romanticized. We don't get that so much in England in contemporary fiction. It feels like it tends to be looking back into historical fiction.
Yeah.
Whereas you are sort of, you're writing the road songs of.
Well, this is what I always wonder why people haven't cottoned onto this with my writing. I'm glad that you've seen that, because I'm such a lover of American and Canadian fiction. That's like, and I want to write those sort of books, but set here. People say, oh, you're a very English writer. Maybe I am in terms of I love the landscape here, but I think I'm coming at it from maybe this, my favorite writers, they're people like Annie Proulx. It's the way they write about small town life.
Well, I think in England there's more of a sense of like, you've got to act like you're slightly embarrassed by everything, or slightly ashamed of everything. You're not allowed to like stuff that's like part of like, people say, oh, have you been to Exmouth? It's shit. It's not like there's any love for these places, but you yourself, you love exploring places.
I love shit places.
You love shit places. You just can't get enough shit places.
I think what it is I write about a lot of beautiful places like Dartmoor or the West Dorset coast, but
there is this
I
sort
don't want
of
to
griminess that you capture.
I don't want to limit myself to that, and I'll go for a walk in a really kind of quite grim place sometimes, because I think that's equally interesting to write about. Hey, I don't know how we're doing for time.
That's what I was aware of as well.
Shall I read something?
I think you should. Shall I invite Nick up to play some guitar?
Do you want to play a bit of guitar?
Just ignore us and we'll busy ourselves.
Okay. So I'll just introduce the bit that I'm going to read from. It's just a short bit.
I don't know what he's going to plug into.
Oh, that's the point. Yeah.
I think you should just play the acoustic, mate.
So this is this bit is it's based on the leisure centres where I used to swim as a kid, and I was obsessed with swimming, like from a young age. I was always nagging my mum and dad, like to can we go swimming? Can we go swimming? Anytime they mentioned swimming, I'd be like there in the room going, swimming? Do you say swimming? So they invented another word so they could talk about swimming without me badgering them, which was nadging. And I didn't know what nadging meant. I only found this out later. So this is about that, and this is one of those bits of the book that's pretty much just straight autobiography, the whole thing. This is about a swimming pool I used to go to. It's about two swimming pools. It's a swimming pool quite near the house in North Nottinghamshire, and then it's about the slightly posher swimming pool, which we went to on the other south of the Trent, which to me is the true divide between northern and southern England. My mum didn't always join my dad and me in the pool. Instead, she sometimes went into a tiny room nearby, and for reasons that remained largely opaque to me, shut herself into a strange, futuristic coffin, emerging half an hour later as a slightly different woman, more orange, and somehow, alongside it, less trustworthy. Outside the door was a robot, which I guessed to be about 13, due to it being shorter than my dad and taller than me. It was worse than Colin from next door's robots, because it didn't walk or have a face. But better than them, because if you put money inside it, it gave you a can of 7-Up or a packet of Skips. On the sloping ramped corridors milling around could be found men with neat moustaches and hair that looked like it was a fly screen for a secret door in the back of their head. Dressed in tracksuit tops and trousers cut expressly to show off the bright whiteness of their socks, they bounced balls on squash rackets and winked at me and at ladies heading to the badminton courts, or scrubbed bubblegum and dog poo stains out of the worn blue carpets. In a short time, much to the consternation of my Aunt Sue, Donna and her friends would one day come here purely to try to attract the attention of these men's similarly attired successors, sometimes receiving lifts home with them in their low-slung cars. Directly next door was the comprehensive, where Donna was already becoming one of the more popular pupils amongst her peers, far more popular than I would ever be in my time there. Upstairs, directly above the crisp-giving robot, a room full of immovable plastic seats and lockers serving part-time as a youth club awaited that summer's school discos. These would be fueled by Carlsberg Special Brew and its 9% alcohol content, which so many 14-year-olds of the area, including one day me, would, having little experience of the universe outside northwest Nottinghamshire, grow up believing was an entirely normal beverage to ease a person into their drinking life. The pool at that leisure centre in Ironfield, the nearest to home, wasn't the best, but it certainly wasn't the worst. The later accolade went to the one about a mile from Sandy Hill, where we were sent for lessons with a menacing, half-squashed goblin called Mr. Grubb, who barked at us in a way no teacher at the school ever did, and had been reliably witnessed on numerous occasions, though not by me, to flick his own bogies into the deep end. Unrenovated since around 1903 and prone to wobbly tiles and cockroach infestations, it was a hugely uninviting environment to get wet in, characterised by a suspiciously furry-looking diving area, so dark and mysterious in its deepest depths that rumours circulated that the remains of Victorian sailors and their ghost boats could be found there, provided you could hold your breath for long enough. I never built up the courage to try. Instead, I dreamed of the light, clean pool on the other side of the city with the freshly installed flume, which, after lots of swerving of the issue and diversionary conversation on the theme of nudging, my parents finally took me to on what the pool's owners called family night. It cost 50p for the four of us, me, my mum, my dad and my temporary brother, Danny McNulty. That got us 3 joyous, eclectic hours of badminton, squash, table tennis, 5-a-side football and the highest quality nudging available in the whole of the Greater Nottingham region. The one catch was that everyone had to be officially related. This led in subsequent months to me gaining a number of new siblings of dramatically varying sizes, shapes and colours. A pattern that was never questioned by staff, who probably pictured a culturally rich but cramped home life in a one-bed terrace nearby. On the weeks where Danny McNulty was with me, I'm sure nobody would have concluded that I was the elder of the two brothers. He was a good year or two ahead of me in physique, and at least 7 ahead in ideology. My mum says Thatcher and God are the modern world's 2 greatest evils, and I think she's right, he told me during a pause in a table tennis match. But aren't there lots of different gods? I asked. They can't all be evil. Yep, everyone. My mum says so. They're responsible for virtually all the suffering in the world, and they somehow manage to do that without existing. Emma Button says you're an alien from Saturn. I can't believe she told you that. I made a promise not to tell anyone, and it's not Saturn. I don't know what the planet is. The aliens sucked that memory out of my mind, I think. We were at her house when she told me. She's got video player now. We watched Empire Strikes Back, then we watched Empire Strikes Back again. Then we watched Panorama. Her mum videos it. Emma and me and her mum were talking about the ice planet Hoth and what it would be like to live there and about the future of British Rail. Her mum and the people on Panorama says it's hugely uncertain. Don't worry, Emma trusts me, I won't tell anyone else. Oh, and her mum knows too, but she won't tell anyone either. I smashed a serve past him and proceeded to win by 21 points to 6. But that week the Tory party manifesto had been published with worrying plans to abolish the GLC and 6 metropolitan counties, and there was a rumour Michael Foot was poised to resign as Labour Party leader. So I suspect Danny wasn't giving the game his full concentration. Thank you. I think we're almost up time-wise, aren't we?
I was trying to look to see if we were getting any sort of signals.
Yeah, Charlie, are we almost?
Oh, look at
Should,
that.
yeah, would anyone like to ask any questions at all? We thought we'd open it out to the floor for a while, and everyone's always afraid to ask the first one. Go on.
Well, obviously music's great, obviously.
Yes.
Fiction and fiction books, it was all sound music. So, what's your current favourite listening?
My current favourite listening. That's quite hard to answer, but I got a because there's always like 6 that are the best albums ever at any one time. And sorry, say it again. Pentangle. No, I haven't listened to much Pentangle recently. It's not the season for Pentangle. So Pentangle are very much an autumn band for me. So I'll probably go back to my Pentangle. What changes is that I love all the Pentangle albums, and they've all been the best album at some point, but it changes. I think last time it was the self-titled first one, but I got an album by Federal Duck the other day at a steel mill in Wolverhampton, which was this. So I was like driving up to my mum and dad's and this talk I did in Derbyshire, and I'm like in traffic at an absolute standstill, and I very quickly went to recordfairs.co.uk and was like, what's on in the West Midlands? And then saw there's a steel mill that had a record fair, and it was only a short detour to Wolverhampton, and it was just loads of blokes called Steve selling loads of metal, apart from this one guy who had loads of great psychedelia. And I'd been looking for an original of this Federal Duck album for years, and it's quite a kind of I suppose what would you call it? It's slightly folky, but it's like folk psych thing, and it's very hard to get for under 100 quid, and I got it for like 40 quid, which was absolutely amazing, really, to get it. But the whole thing with Everything Will Swallow You is because the main character's a record dealer, it's been a great excuse to just sort of buy even more records.
So it's research.
Exactly. You write it off as research, but I went a bit too far into it and had to say to myself, you are not a record dealer, you are a writer. Stop doing this. So that's the short answer. I've been loving that record at the moment, but I'm listening to a lot of jazz as well at the moment. What's your favourite record at the moment?
I've been listening to a record by jazz
Jasmine Myra.
Myra, yeah, she's sort of in the sphere of Matthew Halsall and his record label.
Okay.
She's from Leeds, she's a sort of jazz musician from Leeds, and he's her second name.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Written it sort of Alice Coltrane, spiritual jazz.
Oh, well, I love Alice Coltrane, so I'd probably like that then. Yeah. Anyone else at all? Got a question? Yes, at the back. Hi.
Did writing it change your opinion about some of your memories or about some of them?
About writing 1983, did it change my opinion about my memories? I think I already was starting to realise, like, there's this thing where you think everything was normal, the way you grew up. And then you start to, it's only later that you start to realise what was unique about it. And I think I'd already had that realisation that I was very lucky to go to that school with that particular set of inspiring teachers, but it hit me harder and harder the more that, the further I went into the book, and I just felt more and more grateful. And then the book became this sort of double-level tribute to that time. So on one hand, I'm writing a fictionalized version of that time and just really talking about how nice it was and how happy all the kids were. But then I'm realizing I can write a book like this because of what those teachers taught me about, like, following your own path and the freedom of learning. And I realized, I mean, I was in that world and I had to come out of it because the book had to be finished. And it's quite a short book, but when I finished it, I desperately missed it. I was like, oh my God, I've got to live in 2024 again. Jesus Christ, what a nightmare. So that was the main effect. It was a heightening of things that I already realised, and a greater gratitude for and a great gratitude for my parents and sort of the things they sort of didn't push me towards, but the books they gave me and things like that. So it was that more than anything, yes. Anyone else? Ben, do you have another question?
Do I look like I'm growing out of Nick?
You absolutely do. Nice flute, by the way.
Thank you. You put me on the spot now. I did all my questions. No, so what's next for you after Everything Will Swallow You?
Yeah, so I'm editing that at the moment, and it's actually the hardest edit I've ever done, and I think it's the hardest edit I've ever done.
But you're on the deadline, aren't you? You're fine.
Yeah. I've got like, I don't know, 5-6 days left, so I'm hopefully going to make it. But it's hardest because the book's quite tangled and complicated in terms of, like, intersecting timelines. It takes place over the course of, it goes right from 1955 to the present day. And so it's more of a challenge in that way, and it's hard to sort of think about what will come next. I've been very lucky that I've got an extra editor on this one, which is the daughter of one of my favourite writers, Alan Garner, and she's a professor of folklore, Liz Garner, and she's done a very detailed, thoughtful edit on it. So I'm going through that, and then but when I've done that, I think I'm going to write something a bit shorter and take my time with it. I think that's what I've got to do to give myself a bit of a break and just maybe realise, well, you can push yourself to do a new, different thing, but it doesn't have to swallow your life. I have felt like this.
But you said everything will swallow you.
Exactly. It's like I set myself up for it in so many ways, and it felt like the book was really swallowing me at times. And then, additionally, about 4 days before I'd finished it, I went to this beach in East Devon where there'd been a cliff fall, and I'm fascinated with these chalets that have been built into the cliffside above this beach, and I'd written about them before, but then I realised one had been annihilated by the cliff fall. It's just like a bit east of Sidmouth, and I tried to climb up to it because I can't resist, like, getting into derelict buildings and checking them out. And then I realised I was on this kind of mudslide, and suddenly the earth started moving towards me, and I thought, wouldn't this be poetic if that's how I died, when I'm writing a book that's sort of partly based on cliff falls and the shifting land.
Though we knew there's still time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Crushed by a sheep would be quite good.
I nearly got crushed by a sheep. Yeah, I've still got whiplash from rescuing a sheep off a cliff from 4 years ago. Yes, yeah, I got on top of it and it started going at 70. Does anyone else have any questions? Just to give it. Hi. Yes. So the village, I call it Tapley Woodhouse in the book, and it's called Brinsley. Do you know it at all?
No, I grew up in Nottingham.
It's about 11 miles north of Nottingham, and it's quite close to the Derbyshire border.
Right.
And it was actually, our house was sort of between Brinsley and Underwood, and we always kind of, at weekends we'd go to the Peak District, which is only like half an hour's drive away, and my mum and dad would like fantasize about being able to afford to live there instead of in Brinsley, which was a little bit grim. But I liked it, really, as a kid.
So did you go to Matlock Bath?
Yes, we did, yeah.
We did.
Yeah, we went there. I mean, it was a bit busy. I think we avoided that a bit and sort of went a bit south of there, like to sort of around Cromford, Wirksworth quite a lot, and then above it as well. And that area's like popped up in my writing so much, to the extent, because it was such a big part of my childhood, that like when I wrote Help the Witch, I sort of went, sod it, I'm going to live in the Peak District to write ghost stories, because Help the Witch they're loosely ghost stories, and I thought I'm going to do like this method experiment where I put myself in a spooky part of the Peak District in winter, which has the atmosphere of the walks I went on as a kid with my mum and dad there. So I really I didn't do things in half measures. This was the Beast from the East, and I went to Eyam, which is the plague village that during the plague lost 4/5 of its residents because it locked itself in to not spread the plague to the other villages. So it's a very, very forlorn, spooky place in winter, and there are graves, unmarked and marked, all over in all the fields. And that's really high up. I thought, no, I'm going another 800 feet above there to live in an isolated cottage, and I was snowed in all winter and wrote these stories there, which was great for the book, but not so good for me. And then I ran back to Devon as soon as I could, because I missed it so much. Anyone else at all? Shall we wrap things up?
Like an actual...
Thank you.
Shout at you now. I feel like I have to get over here. Thank you for it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for asking the question. Thank you both for the music. Thanks, Nick. And you're going to carry on playing, aren't you? While I'm going to come over to the back and sign a few books. If anyone would like book signing, and I have some free copies of my book Notebook, which you get if you come and sort of get a book signed over there. And yeah, it's that one. And thank you so much to Charlie and to Hayley and Nathan from Sacred Grounds. It's such a lovely space, and been really happy to be here. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Cheers.